is Andrew Hunter, I hear you ask? Andrew Hunter is a senior aerodynamic engineer. Dr. Andrew Hunter would have been a 1978 Manning's grad had he not defected and gone to St. Jago. As always, please like, subscribe, send to a friend, and let's meet Andrew Hunter. Hi, this is Roger Smith of the True Blue Lounge, and today I have what would have been a 1978 graduate if he didn't defect and go to St. Jago, Andrew Hunter. Andrew, how you doing, sir?
Hey, pretty good, Roger. Pleasure to be here.
Cool. Hey, thanks for taking the time in your busy schedule and earthquake and tornadoes and all kind of things going on where you live there, so who knows. So, Andrew, what part of Westmoreland are you from, sir?
Okay, well, actually, I was born in Kingston, and my father moved to Hanover, which is in Hanover, Ramble, and I started out there at about 3 years old, and went to primary school in Unity, Stratbogie, and then came to Manning's.
Before you go on, Ramble. So where's Ramble?
Ramble is in Hanover.
So you left clear Hanover and come down to Unity?
Yes.
Is that through Grange Hill, Glasgow, that way?
It came through Cornwall Mountain, Whitton, Petersfield, that side.
Wow.
It used to be like, I think it was 17 miles we took before we had a car. We used to take the Western Queen bus. And I tried to get my sister because I remember in the early morning we'd get up to try to catch the bus. But I don't remember much about the evening part, because I think we'd have had to repeat the trip coming back, my mom and my sister and I at the time.
Wow, that's amazing. Sometimes we don't, when you say how many miles it is, it doesn't sound bad. But if you visit Jamaica and see them road, then you realize that it was like, a trek to go to school every morning and go home, But when people think of it, they think of maybe a first world road, Oh, it's only 17 miles. It probably takes them, 20 minutes,
Right.
Where it's probably a 2-hour journey for you. What time did you have to get up in the mornings?
All I know, it was dark.
Wow. So
And,
was there lessons classes when you were there?
I'm sorry?
Were there lessons classes at Unity when you were there?
Yes, I took extra lessons, and boy, that was a story by itself. It was a big class with extra lessons, and the principal at the time, Miss Blackgrove, most people probably know her, infamous, and Miss Dobson. Those teachers were very, very strict.
So Dobson was the principal when I was there.
Yeah, and even if you can't get anything wrong, you can't fidget, you can't do certain things. And even if you are not the one doing it, but you're next to the person who is doing it, you might end up at the end of that strap,
Same. So do you remember anybody from Unity that you used to go to school with?
Oh, yes. Well, a couple of the people like Marlene Tate was in my age group, but also Leighton Khan, Oral Khan, Yasmin Curlew, even a lot of people from
Unity. So these are Unity people that went to Manning's with you.
Went to Manning's,
Okay. Cool. Well, at least cognitively all right.
Oral's family is from Stratbogie too, so we're all used to. Because after school, I'd walk home. My mom had a hairdresser in Stratbogie, so we'd stay at her house until my mom got off work, and then we'd leave from her house.
Okay.
To get home.
All right. So, in front of Oral and Leighton's house, was there like a shop somewhere? Was there a shop there or something?
Well, I remember it's on the walk towards. Well, there was a barber shop.
That's what I remember.
Famous barber shop, and there was also a bakery, and we'd all like pool our money together and buy a whole bread, which was a lumps of bread, and each one would get a piece, with some cheese. That was our favorite pastime in the evenings, going home.
It's amazing that a lot of greatness from Westmoreland, the staple was dry bread, dry bread
Oh
and
yeah,
cheese.
bread fresh out of the oven,
Yeah.
warm. If you're lucky.
So what was it like seeing your name in the Gleaner and going to the big school in Mannings?
Oh my! Well, to be honest with you, back then we were very lucky. Of course, the big schools. Mannings was a good school, but Monroe, boarding schools had a big reputation. Like okay, and it kind of came down to money for a lot of people. Going away to boarding school, or even going to Mannings for that matter, because at the time you could pass for a full scholarship or a half scholarship and things like that. But in our year was the first year we actually had um, free education. So
Okay.
when I actually passed the year before, but they said I was too young. So
Okay.
the common entrance. So I had to do an extra year. And
It's
then
amazing when you use the word free education. I remember what it was like for normal people to even afford uniforms, shoes, books, because that was the time when Jamaica was, economically weren't doing so well. So that was a rough time.
the problem with the economy is that when you're a kid, you don't know anything else, right? When at Unity, we used to have breakfast in the morning. I remember that. I used to love the
Cornmeal
flour
porridge.
dumpling. Well, they had flour dumpling with curried fish, saltfish, and
Okay.
cabbage. And then the powdered milk, people just use that and throw in people's head.
Right, 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 right.
We never cared much for the powdered milk, but the even just a little taste of the curry fish and saltfish and cabbage with the
Wow,
dumpling.
wow.
That was a treat.
When you want a favorite meal now, Andrew, what's your go-to?
Well, ackee and saltfish,
Even
easily.
now.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay. Are you a cook?
I cook. Yeah, I'm the main cook, but at the moment, my kids like to cook too when
Okay.
they're home.
All
But
right.
since it was my wife and I, most of the time, I just cook for us, the two of us.
Okay. Cool. 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 So, what are your fond memories of Mannings? And why
Boy, I
was it
tell you,
only
there are
three
so
years?
many.
And why Jacob?
Mannings is a whole ecosystem, going a development system for us. All right, starting from Unity, because Unity itself was a place like that. We had people paid marbles. That was a whole thing by itself. The big boys would want to steal your marbles, but it was a competitive thing. Who could win the most marbles, right?
Of other
So after
people
you
there.
win your marbles, hopefully you can run off with your. If you win a big guy and take away his marbles, him just use brute force and take them back.
Yeah, that's Jamaica
But
for you.
and then come to Mannings now, it's kind of the same thing. You're going to first form, and seniors will all give you like a penny and send you to the shop and say you have to bring, to the canteen and bring back lunch for them. But fortunately, we had a guy in our class called Donovan Brown. And when he stands up in the doorway to our classroom, no senior could dare come in and try to harass us.
That's bigger, yeah, bigger Brown.
Yeah, bigger Brown.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The late
Yeah,
bigger
but
Brown.
so,
Yeah.
so we at Mannings we were involved in cadets with soccer, PE, especially PE, because when I look back now and see the PE teachers, Keeper Green, Merton Jones, they were doing some exercises that were almost impossible, because we're so small, Nowadays, I said, boy, it's stuff like that really grew you up and built you up, from pretty much zero, how to play football, how to get in shape. And of course, you had the academic part too, the math. I remember Miss Myrie, and religion, a lot of other courses. That
So Trevor Smart, you remember Trevor Smart?
yeah, I know Trevor Smart. Trevor Smart. Actually, what happened to Trevor Smart?
I don't know, but all I know is when I was a youngster, Bigger
Yeah,
Brown, Trevor Smart, and these guys, they were like infamous, infamous
Trevor
at the
Smart
school.
lived right next door to the Perrys, and the
Uh huh.
Perrys and my mom worked together in the same office. So
Okay.
sometimes we would actually get taken by the Perrys to wait for my mom.
The Perry
So we did a
twins,
lot
eh?
of things. The Perrys, yeah, Peter, James, and John, but Peter is a little older.
Okay.
Then they had the twins. I think they're a little bit younger than me.
Uh huh.
And then the sister, Jillian, she's the youngest.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah, I know them,
yeah,
man,
so
and yeah, I know quite a few people in your year, obviously.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
well, and that's the thing about the West. Everybody knows everybody, like through are the names at the very least.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Any influential teachers for you at Manning's?
Well,
Me know why you
me,
me know why you boost them
I
up if
like
they weren't
I
influential,
most of Mr. Allen,
Uh-huh.
the art teacher.
Cedric.
Uh, Cedric, yeah,
Yes.
and he played soccer too. So a lot. The thing I loved about the Mannings is that the whole teachers played, and they had a team. The whole teachers would play on the team.
Right.
Mr.
Right. Right.
Green,
Right.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Abrikian. And I mean these guys were like English Premier League.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
it came to soccer. Um, but academically, I think Rag Shippey had the biggest impact
Right.
on
Right.
me.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
he was a chemistry teacher,
Yeah, I
and
remember Mr. Shippey, dark guy. Yeah. Nah.
yeah, and I was fairly good in math. Actually, the new math gave me a fight. I never, for some reason, never really took on to it. I think that was Mr. Barman, but I like pure math. I
Okay.
like physics, chemistry, bio, and I would say at Mannings, I wasn't necessarily. I did well in some years. I think the highest I came was like around fifth. But there was some competition in my class for the top.
Right. Right.
My
Right.
kids
You
were low.
wasn't Donaldson in your year? Brian
Yes,
Donaldson.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Okay.
yes. But it was in my class. When we started out at Mannings, there was a B, C, D, E kind of thing, right?
Ranking.
1A, 1B, 2A. And then after that, Mr. Nita became, I think, yeah, he was principal the very year we started. And they got rid of the ABC stream and they started calling it like Manning School initials. So they
Right.
got rid of the connotation of the ABC. But we were in the A stream.
Right.
And
Right.
you had people like Dudley Johnson, Andrew Martin. Those were I remember some standards. Marsha Scott. As far as academics.
Seeing.
I was okay. I
Yeah.
had fun.
It's
Mark
amazing how
Marcus,
much people
myself,
peak
Michael
after.
Nita.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had fun. So, but we did our work and we studied. But I think we were very rounded in sports, cadets, and we spend a lot of time together, just having fun.
Right. I think a lot of people peaked academically after school, but the foundation from Unity and Manning's probably was paramount. So tell me, you went to Manning's up until third form.
Yeah.
What was that going? What was that decision to leave the great institution and go to another one? What was all
Again,
that about?
work. My father, actually, he made a couple moves. So after we left Nakalva, we moved to Amity, because then he started working with the food farms. So he was a vice principal at Nakalva Agricultural Technical School. Where he actually went. But after that, he started working with the food farms, and then we moved to Amity. And then from the farms in the west, he moved to farms in St. Catherine, and so we moved to Bagwalk. And then from Bagwalk back to Kingston.
So what was St. Jago like compared to Manning's as an institution?
All right. Well, again, that's the thing. There are a few people actually I met from Manning's who came to St. Jago, like Phoebe Whitelock, I remember as one. Um, Christopher Vickers, or people I knew from Unity and Manning's, and Angela Hamilton. They all came to St. Jago. So, but it was different. It was completely, again, new friends, a different family, so to speak. But as far as sports, that was a big shift because at Manning's I played Colts and a lot of soccer. But at St. Jago, I switched to track and field. I did high jump at St. Jago. I
Okay.
did some high jump at Manning's, and I even competed in Western champs. But when I went to St. Jago, I did high jump. So, because track and field was very big at St. Jago, and just being on the track team, people encourage you to join the team. I I was able to join as a high jumper because they didn't have that many high jumpers. And I'm born in January.
Mhm.
So I was supposed to be a star. But if been born a few weeks earlier, I would be competing against,
Age
the lower
appropriate.
class. Yeah, but it turns out that I ended up competing against man like Devon Morris, Zele,
Mm.
from class two at Champ. So it was a different story, but it was fun. The work ethic. People like Bertland Cameron was on my team. And I
The
remember,
Bertland Cameron, the 400-meter
yes,
guy. All right, all
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, I remember. Actually, St. Jago, I think, came fourth in boys champs the year before I came. And
Okay.
then after I came, they came 16. So, but it champs, all these things help to build character because we come from very humble beginnings, right? And the school has limited resources. But at the end of the day, this really allows us to put out, compete with the world. We're
Hmm.
at this level, we were at, world class. Even
Hmm.
when you go back and look at the facilities, where we had back in those days. And even now, some of the
Hmm.
schools still lack a lot of resources. It's just amazing. Just the school spirit,
Yes,
the
yes.
teacher, the coaching staff, and I would say most parents didn't get too involved in their kids' sporting activities.
Yeah, to make
They
a
just
little
want to
money.
hear that you won. If
Yeah,
you can't tell them you lost or anything when you get home,
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was, they weren't even there. But
Hmm.
if you tell them you won, all right, you get a little congrats.
Yeah. So walk me through leaving St. Jago, going down to UE, and to where you are now in New York. Now, walk us
Yeah.
through what happened.
Well, I want to tell you a little bit more about Mannings because when I was at Mannings, I think Unity was, as I mentioned to you before, the big schools were like Monroe, you know, high academics. And at the time, I didn't know that Mannings was such a highly regarded academic school. And I was aiming to get like five O levels. I would say that would have been very respectable performance. But by the time I finished O levels at St. Jago, I ended up with eight. And several of my classmates from Mannings ended up with eight. And I'm pretty sure some probably have even got 10. So that was like a whole big revelation to me. It's like, wow, we are capable of achieving a lot more than what we had in our mind or what was our previous expectation. So, and so going to St. Jago, we have a big tradition of people going down to Trinidad for engineering. So naturally, that was my first choice, engineering. And I did chemical engineering in Trinidad. We had 17 St. Jagoites. One year we took a picture, and that was like the most, highest number of people from any one school in Trinidad on our hall, which is Canada Hall. So yeah, I mean, it was a great time. Of course, the brotherhood that we ended up um, joining on Canada Hall is legendary, or very outstanding to this day. As before I went to Trinidad, I actually did a year at Mona in natural sciences, and you could feel the differences between the halls. Many of my classmates from Mannings ended up on Taylor or Chancellor, and or Mary C. Cole, I remember. But Taylor was a popular hall as well as Chancellor. But in terms of UWA overall, I think I must say there is no parallel with Canada Hall as a hermit. But yeah.
Okay. So leaving you, to where you are now, how did all that happen?
Okay, so after leaving UWI, I came to work. I started working. I worked for Seprod, and then I worked for Exxon. And those jobs. I mean, Jamaica as working for Exxon was the most interesting. I ended up working at the refinery, but at the time I was looking to advance in terms of more higher education. So I left and came to the States, and I switched from chemical engineering to mechanical engineering because I thought there'd be more opportunities in mechanical engineering. So I started doing a master's in mechanical engineering, and then interviewed at General Electric for a co-op position and got accepted, and left New York to Schenectady, where the GE Power Systems headquarters. Actually, that's kind of where the whole electric, it's called Electric City. That's where electricity power generation was developed. And so that's how I ended up moving upstate New York. So I was in New York just for a very short time as I enrolled in the master's program at Long Island, New York Institute of Technology in Long Island, and then moved upstate to Schenectady, and did my master's at Union College while working for GE in steam turbine thermodynamic analysis. So I did analysis of the power plants and many other nuclear power plants and other fossil fired units around well, mostly in the United States. And after a few years, I moved to Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute to work on a project for General Electric, and that project formed the initial basis for my doctorate in mechanical engineering. And funding ran out on that project because they got the data. They weren't too interested in the educational part. They just needed data. So I built a test rig to look at the ventilation system for electric power generators. And after they got the data for that system, they decided, well, no more funding. So I came back to work. But between that time, I was able to finish all the coursework. And so I kept working at GE while kind of continuing with the PhD until we had a new president and a new policy at RPI, which wouldn't allow any more people to continue working on their PhDs part time. You either had to quit or going to school full time. So that's when I made the decision to quit GE and go to RPI full time to finish my thesis. And in that time, I resurrected the test rig that we had built before. And I was able to finish my thesis and get my PhD. And After that, I ended up working at RPI in mechanical engineering for a few years. And after that, I moved to Atlas Copco, which is another turbo machinery company. So instead of doing turbines, which is what I did at GE, I'm doing compressors. So it's the flow is just going in the opposite direction, but it's still large turbo machinery.
What was your thesis on?
So my thesis was on I looked at airplane wings. So I did a wind tunnel experiment on a supercritical airfoil, which is used for aircrafts. So it was more for modeling to develop a data. A very so we made a large scale wing in which we could take measurements because we wanted to get detailed measurements in the wake of the wing so that we could use it for calibration or benchmarking of computational fluid dynamics.
So you're in
Yeah.
aerodynamics now?
I'm an aerodynamicist, yeah.
Okay,
'Cause
okay,
at
good.
GE, I worked in steam turbine aerodynamics, which is okay. The aerodynamics of turbo machinery is more for internals, like or even a fan, as opposed to an airplane wing, which is or the body of the plane, which is
But it's
the
all
external.
airflow, though. It's all airflow.
It's fluid mechanics is the fundamental, starting from pumps, or it applies to many. It's the soft part of mechanical engineering, you might say, right? Some people look at fluids, some look at solids. Like
Right.
I remember my first year at Union, I did hydrodynamic lubrication, which was it's a lot of math. It boils down to a lot of math, but it's applied to bearings, seals, and also flows that you can simplify. If it's simple enough, instead of looking at it as a fully three-dimensional with all the features of the flow, you can simplify it in order to be able to analyze the geometry or select geometry or make designs using simpler tools and quicker tools. If you were to try to design an airplane, at least back then when I was in school, computers were not as powerful as they are today. So you could never think of using a computer to design a whole airplane.
Right.
But Boeing 777 has been reported to be designed completely with computational fluid dynamics, which is very expensive. But you can just to see how things have changed from the days when we use simple tools, simple methods, and the analytics that we use was actually derived from mathematics or pure math. When we were studying pure math, integration, differentiation, and all that stuff, we had no clue what it was applied to or how you would think using those things. So now if you have CFD, you just put the geometry in and you don't have to solve anything. You kind of let the computer do the work.
Right, right.
So
So my little view of aerodynamics, I'm a Formula One nut, so I'm all about drag coefficient and stuff like that. And I kind of
yeah,
understand how buildings need to be designed because of airflow, because if you're not careful, the loading on the building when breeze blow can put the building down if
yeah.
it's strong enough. So my little JSC aerodynamics is working. I'm okay.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's again, it's a matter of simplification because it can get complicated, right? If you're looking at large scale like a building, and ultimately you have to be able to model the air down to small eddies in order to really calculate the flow, the forces on the building. But it will take a lot of grids and meshes to actually do that. Very so it's always a matter of judgment, right? Based on the sources that you have and the simplifications that you can make. So to get accurate enough measurements to design your buildings
All
and
right.
figure out what things are.
So Andrew, I'm gonna try and get to know a little bit about you now. So
Yeah.
So a lot of the work you've done looks like, if I was a North Korean spy or a Chinese spy or Israeli spy, you're the sort of guy I'm looking to either go out to lunch with or find somebody for kidnap so we can carry, make you help build something for us. So have you noticed a lot of your friends are engineers and people and scientists?
Oh, well, actually, the era where we live, is GE Global Research is there, Knowles Atomic Power Lab, which develops the propulsion system for nuclear submarines.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of military aspects to what we do,
Hmm.
as well as commercial. Even aircraft,
Hmm.
there's military side and there's a commercial side.
So
So
are you able to like go to Jamaica and play dominoes with two no teeth man on the side of the street
I
in our
am the
little shop?
same guy who used to play Kitchen Shubi
Okay.
and steal away from gardening on Thursday evenings at
Hmm.
Unity. It's no different, So yeah, I wasn't in the top secret anything, but there's a lot of overlap, right? It's just a
Hmm.
matter of what information you have access to, but you have the skills to do anything if you choose, right? So
Hmm.
it's a matter of you know there's good and bad in everything.
Have you got any
So
vices, Andrew?
well, I'm trying to think what would be my worst vice. Social media is probably my biggest vice now. I don't even want to check how many hours I spend per day on social media.
Me
Not
too.
enough time exercising, you know, and not enough time doing meaningful things. I've actually been thinking there's the time that we spend on this earth should be spent doing productive things, doing things that will actually leave an impact.
Hmm.
So, but most of the time you end up going to work, falling in a routine, and so. But I've been trying to address that,
Hmm.
and I've started working on a foundation for the Canada Hall Hermits,
Hmm.
where we're looking to unite the hermits and give back to development across the Caribbean. So I'm the treasurer of the Hermit Foundation. We recently got incorporated in Delaware. So we are a formal company, not for profit,
Hmm.
and raising funds. We're actually working on a project in Darlistan because I know Darlistan, one of those places that was severely impacted by Hurricane Melissa.
Yes.
So we're trying to bring the expertise and resources of engineers, a lot of engineers in our group, to try to help with the restoration there.
Are you in any Manins alumni groups?
Um, in my class, 5A 1978, we've
Hmm.
done some scholarships,
Hmm.
and so I'm involved with that.
Hmm.
But I need to get more involved. And sometimes I feel a little bit bad, but my class is doing outstanding. And
Hmm.
they recently launched the HG NITA Award for Excellence and Leadership. That was a
Hmm.
big thing. And of course, I try to contribute to the drives. Like, Mannings went through quite a few disasters, one after the other,
Hmm.
including the old building, which is very sad to see. So
Right.
I hope to be making bigger contributions to Mannings. But
Hmm.
I actually am close to a few Mannings people still.
Hmm.
Apart from the ones in Jamaica, it's kind of hard to keep in touch because
Hmm.
when we travel, it's mostly with the family. You're not free to go where you want to go.
Hmm.
But up here, we have a few Mannings friends that I'm in touch with.
Okay.
Maxine Spalding actually lives up here.
Hmm.
She's in Albany, and we get together. She was very, very, very instrumental, I would say, when we had our first kids. She's a nurse, and our first kids were triplets. And Maxine
Wow.
was like, a towering force helping us navigate the uncertainties of what to do. She was right there the day when we took them all three out to three car seats. So, I was trying to figure out how they're gonna even fit in the car. But
Yeah, that's amazing. So, so are you a religious man, and how does religion help you in your life?
I think, yeah, I'm a God-fearing religious guy. You know, I got baptized in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church many years ago. I attend the Catholic faith up here since we don't have an Orthodox church. There's one Orthodox church, but it's a Greek or Egyptian Orthodox, and I don't understand the Hebrew. So my wife and I are Catholic. We got married in the Catholic Church, which is very similar to the Orthodox. But my parents, both parents are very religious, and God fearing, praying people. And so they raise us to believe in God and have faith in everything that we do. And that has taken me through many trials and travails. So even if I don't come across as, someone who is preaching hell and preaching, you know, you have to save your life. But, I believe that you have to have some spiritual foundation. I don't think it's, of course, after death, nobody really knows for sure. But, you hope that if you live a good life, at least you shouldn't have to worry about what happens afterwards.
All right, indulge me a little bit, Andrew. So, when you think of religion, when you think of monkeys and dogs and other animals, where do they line up? Do they have to have faith, you think?
Well, I don't think animals are as I mean, they have certain intelligence, of course, right? But when you look at nature and the whole creation of life and how life started, we're still we lack a lot of knowledge, right? We're still trying to understand the universe. The universe is vast. The earth is vast. Everything we can look at is vast, right? And our knowledge is increasing, but it's really very limited in terms of we can try to explain why things happen. Some things, even some diseases, we're now trying to find cures. But overall, we're just reacting to what we see around us. And so I believe there is a creator. I think there is a higher power. And for us to understand all this, I don't think we'll ever have the capacity to understand everything that's happened and why. But we accept it, and I think we have a wonderful world. I don't believe in hell and that's damnation. I think the Creator created us to live, each one of us to have their purpose on earth, and also I think whatever is going on earth, there's good and bad, but in the end, I think it will all work out. I'm an optimist that way.
So when you're having a hard time, how do you overcome when you're at your lowest?
I look back at what I've gone through and say, life is not always going to be good. You have ups and downs. And even when
Remember,
I
people are
think I'm,
calling you Dr. Hunter, they might call you Dr. Hunter. So, what could you have gone through?
I am not no different that I had the opportunity. Well, okay, I worked hard to get here, right? I put myself through the rigors of study, applications. But I think when you go back academically, most of the people we went through a lot, just to get from common entrance to high school. There are 45,000 applicants, only 9,000 spaces. So you can see right there, it's a big screen. And then when you get to high school, going to college again, by all means, there are many other people who didn't get through, but it wasn't mean that they couldn't get through. It's just a matter of whatever you want to do, you will get done. I'm fortunate to be one of those who got to where I wanted to go. Other people, maybe financially or economically, or maybe just access, weren't able to do what I did. But there's no limit to what any one person can do, what you can see. I wouldn't say that I'm that great, but I think there are lots of other people who are encouraged to not think, not limit themselves
Hmm.
to what they can do or
Hmm.
not do. Or
So,
if not
with,
their children, they
mhm,
can encourage their children. Education for sure is a big a key, right?
mhm,
But even beyond that, we have to look in terms of leadership, and not to get political or anything, but the world is based on people who can make change. So it's
mhm,
all well and good to get educated and become top in your field, or even become a professor.
mhm,
But then you get to influence a number of people. But then there's so much more change you can do if you consider yourself as a leader and not
mhm.
a follower.
Your father was in education, yeah? Do you think that was
Yeah.
influential in you having to go down that scholar route?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my father, he came from very humble beginnings, but that never stopped him. Education, in his case,
Hmm.
he was much more determined than me. I was kind of naturally, I had him to encourage me, first of all. And so I never believed that there's anything I couldn't do. It was
Hmm.
more a matter of how to discipline yourself and complete the journey, right?
Hmm.
In his case, he had the additional issue that even after being a good student, he had to rely on scholarships to get to
Hmm.
go where he wanted to go. So even
Hmm.
if he didn't get the scholarship, he would not have been able to go to to Nakalba or
Hmm.
to School of Agriculture where he eventually went.
Hmm.
And at the time, after he went to JSA and started having children, he decided to stay with his family and not go further, like to go to university and things like that. So, but he's a very knowledgeable guy. I think if you asked him any question, even now when he's approaching 99, regarding agriculture, there are many PhDs and um, masters, or you name it, who don't know half of his knowledge when it comes on to agriculture, whether it's agronomy or animal, you know, any aspect of agriculture. He was extremely knowledgeable in his field. So knowledge and education was a big part of his life, as well as spirituality. He still wakes up every day and reads his Bible. He knows the Bible from cover to cover. And not just him, my grandmother, his mother, was the same way. She was not very educated, but she remembered everything that she would recite, even from basic school. A lot of the church verses and all that. So that's how they lived. They had a strong faith, and they studied hard, and they weren't distracted. A lot of people are distracted. They just want to enjoy life and have fun. They didn't seem to have a purpose. So, but I was lucky to have parents who had purpose, and they weren't like looking to run off and have fun. I had my share of fun, and
Hmm.
and of course they were always trying to discourage that.
Hmm.
But the foundation that they laid in terms of how to live and the values, I think stick with me even to this day when I'm trying to raise our 4 kids.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Jamaica is home to you, yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
Why wouldn't a man like you want to go back to Jamaica and contribute? Because when you go to a Jamaican bank, you have to spend half a day in there. So they need help. Why aren't
right.
brilliant people like you and lots of your peers, my peers, and all of these years, why are they not running back to Jamaica to help out?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people have that's a very good question. And I think there are so many people abroad who would like to come back and move to Jamaica. But sometimes it's hard to move back after you've adapted your lifestyle and your expectations in another country. But nevertheless, we are still very intimately connected to Jamaica. My entire family is still there. I'm the only one here in my immediate family. My brothers, my sister, my parents, they're still there. But beyond that, and the wider society, there are things that are going to take time to solve, right? It's not just money. Money is one aspect, but the other aspect are somewhat what we touched on before. The values, hard work, honesty, integrity, um, just good behavior and discipline. I think are some of the things that need to be addressed. And you see it's a little bit frustrating because that doesn't take money to solve, right? And Jamaica is as good and bad, right? You go to Jamaica, people are very kind, helpful, and in the same breath, it's all the opposite, right? So part of it is that you shouldn't have to go in the bank and spend a whole hour just to open an account.
Well,
But
no, no, no,
because
no, no,
of
no, 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 no. If it was an hour, it wouldn't be so bad. It's nearly half a day. It's nearly
if
half a
you
day.
can even succeed, you spend a whole day and you're still not. Then you have to go around the system to find a way to do it. So, but again, that's just reacting towards the problems that we have, right? They're probably worried about money laundering and all these other things. So, but philosophically, I think we have a far way to go in terms of building the true national spirit, because those are things. I think there's improvements, especially regarding crime, that people are now cooperating more with the police, and they realize that some of these things are actually hampering us beyond, because we get the money, but then people don't do things properly. Hurricane Melissa really poured in, but then you have to be careful how you spend it because you just want to make sure it goes to where it's intended. So there are things like that, efficiencies, inefficiencies. So, but I'm, I'm sure that the younger generation has a lot of potential. You see things happening, universities expanding, and my hope is that people will not have to migrate as much as what we did. People have been migrating since the 60s, but coming going forward, we'll be able to build opportunities so that people can stay in Jamaica. And I would say that we shouldn't beat up Jamaica because it's an economic problem, right? It happens in the States also. In certain towns, certain cities, there were once thriving industrial areas, but people have left because the industries moved.
Yes.
So you have to have the foundation, or you have to have the resources, you have to have the industries, you need to have reasons for people to stay.
So you have
So
four children?
part of that, yes.
Any of your children got any plans to migrate to Jamaica to live? Don't smile. Don't smile. Don't smile.
They've been to Jamaica. I need to immerse them more with the Jamaican culture. They love the food, But again, being born in America and somewhat isolated from, they've been raised around us, right? So most of what they can adapt to is the environment that we grew up in. Now, if you put them in a different environment, unless I don't think they're that adventurous to want to change the environment too drastically. But
Right.
certainly, we've been to Jamaica many times and appreciate Jamaica, the food, the warmth. But overall, it's hard once you move abroad to come back. Some people decide when they're retired they'll come back, but some of the big problems are like healthcare. I think crime is improving, but there's so much that needs to be done that's it's hampering that development that we'd like to see.
Do you think
And
there's a
I would
need
say
for? Do you think there's a need for the likes of yourself to move back and encourage your children to move back and build?
yes, but it has to, as I say, it's human resources is one thing, right? But we need projects, we need programs, we need to actually have things being developed. So from financial resources to planning, there's a lot that needs to be done. And yes, I think it can all be done. It's not impossible. If we found oil in Jamaica tomorrow, we'd be able to develop our own oil industry. If we wanted to develop a spaceport in Jamaica, we have people who could do it. It could be done. That's actually a dream of mine, and I thought Burnham Field would be a perfect place to do that. So I think Jamaicans are very ambitious and very accomplished across the globe, across the fields of you name it. What we need to do is to figure out how we can make it work in Jamaica.
How do you manage your mental health, Andrew?
Again, I try not to think about the same thing over and over too much. I always look at problems as temporary. Eventually, I solve problems by staying within my capacity. You have to know when to take a break. Same thing with teaching. If you go in a classroom and you sit behind I spend a lot of time, I must be honest with you, not going to class because a lot of lecturers would sit and write on the chalkboard for a whole hour. And as they write, they erase. Right there, they don't even give you a time to copy. So you have to take things in small chunks, right? So if it's a big problem or a lecture or something you're trying to learn, you break it down and make sure you understand it step by step. And that worked for me.
While you were a
But
professor, what are the differences with teaching at that level and, say, a teacher at Manning's?
all right, a teacher at Manning's had to deal with discipline and distraction, and also get you somewhat motivated, or inspired. And in a higher educational setting, you also have to inspire the students. But a lot of them are also, very selected, right? So they're very, very smart. So inspiring a smart group is a bigger challenge than trying to get a younger group of students inspired and disciplined. So I would say that's the big thing. But it's the same principle, whether in higher education I think the impact is way more at the high school level because that really determines where you're going to end up.
I've got a nice
Once you
question
get
for
through
you.
high school, I think you can get through anything. College is like it's not it's just a matter of whether or not you want to go. Just like getting an award. Some people will spend the time to write the proposal and make all these things and then get the award. While others, it doesn't matter to them as much, but they may even be more accomplished, right? It's just the act of applying for these things that sometimes it's the impression you get because of where you stand.
Hey,
It's far greater than what it actually is.
so growing up in the 70s in Jamaica, this is a weird question for you. Growing up in the 70s in Jamaica, what is your view on Rasta and ganja from coming from a Christian family back in the 70s and your view
Right.
today?
Well, my view, actually, as I told you before, I was baptized in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So, I have a great affinity to the Rastafarians, and not just affinity, just a whole. I think they help to build a lot of conscience, or in our culture in Jamaica, coming out of colonialism. And yes, people kind of look down on them because of how their appearance, but they are looking at a higher level, a more spiritual level. And I think that's kind of what we're lacking now. We need to be, we're way too materialistic. And if people were looking more spiritual, they wouldn't be like all chasing material things. Because material things, once you achieve it, it's not that satisfying, right? You need things that can endure beyond the material. So back in the 70s, we didn't have that. Everybody was like looking up and didn't even think much of ourselves as black people. But now that what they've been teaching as Rasta, realize that it has such a, nobody thought it would have the impact that it has today, right? Look how big it is across the world. And even now, it's not, it's less of a material than spiritual. It's been becoming more material, which is unfortunate because everybody's looking at some of these artists today parading and making a lot of money, but they're not really sending the message, you know. So I think it's still something that Jamaica created for the world, and it again shows the real talent or potential that Jamaica has.
Wow. Wow. Things have changed. I mean, I remember in the 70s, they would, police would pull over and just, beat a Rastaman, on the side of the road for no reason at all. That was the norm
Yeah,
in the, and I'm going
yeah.
to say mid 70s, 75, 76. So it's just amazing how far we've come. So what are your hobbies
Well,
now? What is your guilty pleasure? So Andrew wants to have a nice time. Are you a cigar man? You like little ganja? You like little rum? What do you do when you want to have some fun?
I have a beer now and then. You know, I like the IPA ales, or I like bourbon, but I'm not a heavy drinker. You know, if I really want to have fun, I go on
Heavy is
vacation.
relative, It's all relative.
True, I would say that compared to the Andrew in the 20s, the same Andrew. It's not
Right.
the same. But you know, when once you become responsible and you spend most of the time working and family, then it's not a lot of socializing outside of that, you know. So it's more of a social thing for me. But I still enjoy the occasional drink, and I enjoy the occasional performance. You know, music is a big part. I enjoy music a lot. I used to play in a band. We never really continued because academics took over. But back in the days, we used to play reggae, you know, with bands like Third World and all these other groups are a little bit older than us, but those are like our heroes. And to see where they actually became when they took it professionally. Nobody thought that they would reach where they reached, touring the world and doing. I would have, again, back to some of the connotations with the Rasta. You know, it's like, okay, that's the type of life you want to do. You know, you probably would think not, right? Because then it was not encouraged. But on the other hand, I think nowadays, you know, I'm looking forward to watching the kids develop more. You know, still not totally out of the parental role, but less and less allowing them to choose their paths and helping to guide them or support them as much as I can.
How old is the youngest?
The youngest is he's gonna be 20 in July,
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's a
Yeah.
senior, going to be a senior in college,
You have
and the
babies.
others are, yeah, they're relative to my classmates, yes, because some of
Yeah.
them are really good parents, but you know my kids are slowly getting there. Yeah,
At your age, you should be a grandfather, no? Grandfather of all a
I'm,
12, 13
I
year
know.
old.
Yeah, yeah. I
Wow.
that's you know when you look back, you know I said, all right, you know I finished undergrad. I worked for 8 years before I actually went back to. I got married at 30, and then I went to do my masters and PhD. So that 8 year period in Jamaica is kind of a time I tried to allow my kids to develop quicker, right? So the
Right.
couple of them already have two masters. One's going on to do his PhD. So
So tell me,
they were able to.
wait a second. So how come you don't have a plumber, a mechanic? Why all your kids have to be doing higher degrees and at the PhD? What is all that about?
But my wife is a PhD. I guess you get influenced by your parents, right? A lot of
Wow.
I've seen that, in many cases that the kids tend to follow what you do, not necessarily what you say, but they kind of like I see that even with the musicians too. A lot of their kids end up being musicians and even better than their parents were. But their
It's
parents,
very nice to see, and it shows a lot about what grooming is all about. You know what I mean? You want your
parenting,
children
yes.
to do the best that they can. You know.
And just like my parents did, they could have gone out and partied and drank and didn't look out for us, make sure that we had what we needed. So that would not have been a
But you
very
haven't
good
told
start.
me what makes you happy yet. You know, you haven't told me what your
Oh,
hobbies
what
are.
makes me happy? I'm
Yeah.
happy. Happiness is one of those things I enjoy. Like my happiest moment is just being with my friends. When most of them are in Jamaica, we're spread out, right? In the United States, we only see each other virtually. So happiness is kind of a, I don't, I would say more or less I enjoy just getting up every day and appreciating nature. But true happiness would be some of the things that you see happening getting less, right? Suffering, war, development in Jamaica. You can't really be happy while those things are still happening. You know,
Andrew, you're deep.
I
You know, you're very deep. You know, like I'm looking forward to watching Mexico and England tomorrow. I'm gonna have some 12-year-old Appleton and keep my feet up. Hey, the wars can rage. There's wars before me. There's gonna be wars after me. But guess what? I've got a
yes,
little time on this earth here, you know, and I'm gonna have a drink and a dance. That's the least I
right.
can do. So for you, you go to the gym. What do you do? You have a bicycle?
I go for walks. I right now I'm doing a big renovation in my house. So that's taking up a lot of time.
You
When
doing any
I
of the work
used to play
yourself, or you have
soccer,
workmen?
I have a workman who is very happy to use my help.
Okay,
So
okay.
I supply a lot of the labor, not the technical part, but
Uh huh.
the demo and go fetch this and fetch that. So
Okay, okay.
yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, man. Hey, anything you need to say to me or ask me, or because I've asked you all the questions I wanted to. I think for me it's more about knowing that you're down this science road, and
Yeah.
I look at you and I say, boy, this guy, has done a lot of studies, especially on the mechanical engineering side. He's a scientist in my eyes, but yet you have this strong faith. So I always like to balance that and wonder. But when your parents are God fearing and your grandparents are God fearing, it's very hard to come out of the matrix. But I'm not saying all these religious things aren't happening. My view is
Right.
that I don't know what's going on. I don't know whether we're in a simulation. All I do is I have to step back and open my mouth and say, wow, whatever's going on is powerful, but I don't know what it's all about.
Right. I understand that, as a scientist, right, we try to understand everything or there's a reason for everything. But at the end of the day, our knowledge is limited. And even if many times we think we are right and we're actually completely wrong. But some of us are not humble enough to understand, to accept that we could be wrong. You always like to say, oh, yeah, everything I say is right.
I
Follow me.
believe I believe the amount that we don't know is so great. Yeah.
Yes.
and and for normal men to be humble enough to understand that we are so limited on what we understand. You know, it is unbelievable. You know, because even
Yeah.
if you said to
I,
me
I,
God,
I,
I'm
I,
gonna say who created God and what was His purpose. You know, anyhow,
right.
and you just keep on going on. What is it all about? You know.
Right, right.
Mm.
Well, and that's going to be a never-ending discussion or debate, the nature of God. And it's just a matter of how you personally conduct your life, and what's your north star. When times are bad, what do you rely on? You rely on your own um, strength and power. I think I've been through a lot of times where I knew I could not got through just on my own strength and power. And not only that, but even if you, I think there are other people out there who are far more powerful than me who haven't achieved what I did. So, it kind of leaves you humbling, in a sense that as a human being, we overestimate our power a lot. I don't think anyone is greater than anyone else. Sometimes we all have to realize that we're all the same. What's really difficult is for us to work together because we're
Yes.
always trying to compete with each other and trying to outdo the other and outshine the other. And at the end of the day, we all suffer because we're not looking towards a common goal or to improve. But again, if it wasn't for excellence or the emphasis on excellence, we probably wouldn't reach where we are. So it's kind of a balance, right? From high school, they've been drilling on you. You have to study, study, study. Get good, become the best. I know that we're the best. We're competing against the best, but we don't know how to work together.
Well,
And
I find we have a lot of brilliant people, but I don't think the brilliance is shared around. So, you know, when you're in Jamaica and you look at workmanship, I don't see great workmanship. I don't see
right,
great maintenance. You go to some really nice hotels and you see things, put up the wrong screw, no wall plug, just shoddy work. Not every now and again, 80% of the time you're seeing it. You go to a nice hotel, you see these things. You look at service sometimes, you see people on their phones when you wouldn't expect someone in certain jobs to be on their phone. You go into a shop and people look at you like you're disturbing them. So I'm just saying, yes, we have a lot of brilliant people, Andrew, but wow, haven't we got some work to do?
right. And it comes back down to basic discipline. Even if you have a rule that says you're not allowed to do that on the job, still no one is going to fire. They're going to be sorry for you. Oh, okay, let it continue. And I find the same thing here too, but it's a little bit more stringent, right? Some people are allowed to do things for years and years and years and get away with it. But because they've been allowed to do it for so long, they can get away with it. Now, if you go and try to do the same thing today, you get fired immediately.
Right, right,
So
right.
some of it is that, that everywhere you go, it takes time to get to where you want to be. Jamaica is only about 60 years old, right? So, and if we look at where we're coming from, we'll understand that that's the reason for some of these things. I was actually just reading about Francis Williams, who was a polymath from Spanish Town. His parents were slaves. And this guy ended up at Cambridge working with Sir Isaac Newton. And you see that guy was a, sophisticated, elite black guy. He came back to Spanish Town. He inherited his parents' plantation. He even owned slaves. Of course, he also sent people to school. He's a benevolent guy. But if you go back to Spanish Town now in Frog Hall or near to Barton Hall, there's no trace left of his I guess his lifestyle was so opulent that he probably ended up in bankruptcy. But that's just a story to show how history can go, right? This guy was in the 1690s, I believe. So, but we have a great history, we have a great heritage in Jamaica. We just got to figure out how to unite as a people and stop fighting each other and stop competing and trying to tear each other down. And starts, even if it's just us past students from Mannings. Remember, we're still a small segment of the society, but people are influenced by us a lot. When they see people like us being down to earth, it can actually influence them to say, well, this guy is, I don't have to envy this guy. I don't have to like bad mind this guy because he's no different than me. I could do the same thing. I'm the one who is stopping myself from getting what this guy got, something like that. So, but we need more people to think that they are an act above the level at where they're acting and let themselves home.
My last question for you, sir, is this is a deep one. I'll give you some time to think about it. How has quote unquote white supremacy and racism, how has it hampered your getting your PhD and going up in the ranks, if any at all?
Well, I know I've seen it, but it hasn't prevented me from achieving what I want. Maybe it slows me down, right? But I believe in perseverance. So, but I would say I've gotten a lot of opportunities. Like when I applied for my master's, I just got in, right? So you could say my foundation from St. Jago, from Mannings, from University of the West Indies, I was able to apply to the school and just get in, right? And then when it comes on to the PhD, the same thing. So each level that you're at sets you up for the next one. Now, I graduated with a PhD. You could say you could continue on in academia or continue in industry. But everywhere you go, there are going to be some obstacles. It's just a matter of how much. I don't use the racism thing to say I can't achieve anything in life because my kids have all done very well. I'm proud of them, and we've all been exposed. But it's a matter of how you act in this. If you allow it to keep you down, or you say, well, why are you gonna make it every day? You're talking about racism, or then you're really not gonna achieve anything. But despite all of that, we can achieve. If you have to work 10 times as hard as another guy to get to where you want to go, just do it, because you want to get there.
You have a great outlook, and the fact that the kids are following in your footsteps, maybe even going over what you've achieved, just goes to show that, yeah, these things exist, but for you to use them as an obstacle to hamper you moving forward because you're all wound up in this axle of, I'm a victim, I can't go on. Let me go on, chant down Babylon or whatever that means. But, rather than getting what you need out of the system and then empowering people in your sphere. That's the way I look at it, But we can all keep on marching and whatever, The marching was great and it achieved a lot. But there comes a time when you have to stop and move on and start breaking bread,
Right, and unite. That's our biggest problem. People will always be weaker when we try to attack this system one by one. Actually, that makes it easy, right? But the moment we become united, then they won't even be able to win because we are outstanding. We are very talented.
But then, I don't see us as being monolithic. When you look at Jamaicans holistically and you look at Nigerians, they're totally different people. Aboriginals, totally different people. Black people from Haiti and black people from the DR are totally different people. And there is this view that all black people, maybe from the Marcus Garvey and the Black Star Line, all are we are brother. But at the same time, a Korean and a Chinese man and an Indian man and a Taiwanese and a Filipino, a Laos and Vietnamese, they're not brothers. if you understand.
right,
But we
right, right.
are supposed to be chanting down Babylon, and we're the ones that everybody hates, and we can't get this and we can't get that. But there you are, Dr. Andrew Hunter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing what he wants to do in the Babylonian system. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be sitting in Babylon and fighting against Babylon. You came to Babylon, as they say in Jamaica, you came here to drink milk, not to count cows, right?
Oh,
So you do what you can do. And then if, if people in Jamaica got the same opportunities that we had, they would, I mean, everybody, you've seen it over and over, right? That they can achieve a lot. But then when you go to Jamaica and you look at the environment, as a matter of fact, if anywhere in the world you go and you meet a Jamaican, we feel like brothers.
yes.
But in Jamaica, I don't know what the problem is, right? We're going to figure out how we're going to unite as Jamaicans in Jamaica to build Jamaica so we don't have to leave.
Yeah.
Kids can stay there and build the country.
Well, I was born in the UK. I lived in Jamaica for 5 years. I identify as a yardman, but at the same time, Andrew, guess what? I realized that
Yeah,
this world is just full of borders, man-made borders. The difference between
yeah,
pigmentation is evolution over time, and the need for the human
yeah,
body to attract vitamin D from the sun. And,
yeah,
at the end of the day, we can dice and chop ourselves around and say we're this. You're a Christian, you're a black man, you're bi, you're this, that, and the other. We can do all of that, or we can just be all brothers and sisters under this earth, because when a natural
humanity,
disaster,
right,
yeah. So,
right.
all this black white thing, I don't know, as
And
I
that's
get
the
old.
thing. To be honest with you, that's the real irony of the whole situation. In the US, people like to talk about racism, but when it comes on to, and of course, war and power and this and that, but when it comes on to humanitarian things, I found us to be very generous, right? So there's always a contradiction. And even in Jamaica too, the same thing. Some people you find that are kind of aggressive, they're also very kind and generous. So, but at the end of the day, we need to be more disciplined. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And doesn't matter, as you say, it doesn't matter if you're which country you're from. You have to be disciplined, starting with your own family, your own, mother and father work together, then the kids will come out better.
Yeah.
It's hard when you have the mother raising the whole family or the father raising the kids by themselves. That's just one simple unit right there. And you can move on from there.
I think that is so underestimated. The family
Right.
unit is so underestimated. This
Yeah.
this thing where women are running around. I can do it all by myself, and they're having children, especially when they're having young boys and trying to
Yeah.
grow young men up. I think
Yeah.
it's a disaster waiting to happen.
And it's universal. So, but some places it's worse than others. But
Oh,
it's the same formula,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
need to have at least a family unit, a stable unit to grow up your children. Otherwise,
Problem,
results gonna
problem.
be disastrous.
Hey, Andrew, I really am thankful for you spending the time and talking to me, man. Thank you very much.
All right, Roger, I appreciate it, and all the best,
Yeah, man.
and continue keeping up the good work.
I'm
Really
trying. I'm
appreciate
trying.
it.
I'm trying.
Yeah.